This LOS is explain inflation, hyperinflation, disinflation, and deflation. Unemployment and inflation. Now we're going to look at inflation, and you can see here there's 4 definitions, and again, very important to understand the definitions and some of the characteristics. So there's inflation, deflation, hyperinflation, disinflation. So inflation is an increase in the level of prices in the economy. The inflation rate is the percentage change in a price index. The purchasing power of money decreases, and the liability of the borrower decreases if the loan has fixed monetary terms. Okay? So that could inflation could potentially help a borrower. Deflation is a sustained decrease in the aggregate price level, negative inflation rate. The purchasing power of money increases, and the liability of the borrower increases if the loan has fixed monetary terms. Hyperinflation is an extremely fast increase in the aggregate price level. It generally occurs when government spending is not backed with tax revenues and the money supply is increased or unlimited. And finally, disinflation is a decline in the inflation rate. So it's a change in the rate. So you just really have to memorize the difference between deflation, which is a sustained decrease in the aggregate price level, versus disinflation, which is a decline in the rate. The key word there is rate. A quick practice question to check our understanding. The category of persons who would most likely be harmed by an increase in the rate of inflation is A, homeowners with fixed 30-year mortgages, B, retirees relying on fixed annuity payment, or C, workers employed under contracts with escalator clauses. I think that question is not too difficult. So the category of persons who would most likely be harmed by an increase in the rate of inflation, it would be the retirees relying on a fixed annuity payment, because with inflation, a fixed amount of money buys fewer goods and services, thus reducing purchasing power. We see with A, homeowners with a 30-year mortgage, well, with inflation, that reduces the liability. So inflation is actually potentially a positive to people that have a large amount of debt. And finally, C, workers employed under contracts with escalator clauses, well, their wages are going to rise with inflation. But if you're on a fixed annuity and your annuity does not increase, then your purchasing power has gone down. Inflation really harms retirees. A practice question, which is really just straight out testing definitions, is the term that describes when inflation declines but nonetheless remains at a positive level is A, deflation, B, stagflation, or C, disinflation. The correct answer is C. The term that describes when inflation declines but nonetheless remains at a positive level is disinflation. Disinflation is known as a reduction of inflation, the inflation rate, from a higher to lower rate, but still above zero level. So disinflation is the decline in the inflation rate. There's still inflation, it's still at a positive level, but the rate is lower. Okay? 2 more quick practice questions to finish this LOS. Deflation is most likely to be associated with A, a shortage of government revenue, B, substantial macroeconomic contraction, or C, explicit monetary policy to combat inflation. So B is correct. Deflation is connected to a vicious cycle of reduced spending and higher unemployment. So deflation is most likely to be associated with substantial macroeconomic contraction. And one last practice question to finish this LOS. The least likely consequence of a period of hyperinflation is the A, reduced velocity of money, B, increased supply of money, or C, possibility of social unrest. Okay, I think that question was pretty easy actually, because we're looking for the least likely, so we're looking for the false. That's the only thing you need to be careful with. But with regards to hyperinflation, that's definitely an increased supply of money. So B is true. So it cannot be the correct answer. Also, possibility of social unrest. Yes, we can see in countries where there's hyperinflation, goods are getting very expensive quickly. People on fixed incomes, for example, cannot keep up. They're losing their purchasing power. That could be a possibility of social unrest. But with regards to the reduced velocity of money, no, that's the false, okay? That's the least likely consequence of a period of hyperinflation. So A is correct. In hyperinflation, consumers accelerate their spending to beat price increases and money circulates more rapidly. And that's the last slide for this LOS. Thank you.